Welcome to episode 1 of the Honey Words podcast. I'm Kara Nothnagel and you are so welcome here. Thank you so much for joining me. So this is episode 1. If you know me at all, if you're friends or family, you will know that this has been a long time coming. It just took me time to catch up and get with the program and be willing to take a step of faith. But I'm so happy that you're here with me. The Honey Words podcast is really all about creating a space and a place where we can intentionally step away from the noise of life, the chatter of life, and focus on how we can live well. Many people, all people live, but not always live well. And I really have a heart as a woman, as a friend, as a coach, as a mentor, as a mother. I look at the people in my life and I look at my children and I look at the world around me and I just think there was such a huge price paid many years ago so that we could live life well and fully and really thrive. And I really want this to be a place where this can be my contribution in perhaps helping us together live well together. Because what is life if we're not thriving? I know that for so many seasons in my life, I've often found myself just surviving rather than thriving. And I really don't think that is God's heart for us. I don't feel like that's what we were created for. And so I'm really trusting that this is going to be a space where we can step away together and intentionally take some time to focus so that we can learn from one another in terms of how to live well, how to cultivate lives, how to cultivate hearts and minds and relationships that are authentic, that are significant, that are life-giving, and that ultimately so that we can be people who are healthy, spirit, soul and body, so that we can really run our race well, run our race with endurance, and so that we can also live lives that have a positive impact on others and a positive impact on the world around us, and really play our part in doing well with what we have been given in the time that we've been given it. So thank you so much for joining me. This is our first episode, so it's going to be a little taster of what you can expect over the coming months with the podcast. So first of all, I thought I'd just explain how the podcast is going to work going forward. So I am launching this on my birthday. It's going to be posted on my birthday. I'm actually filming this the week before, just to be real and transparent. So I thought that was a good time. It's a new year in my life, a new chapter in my life, I really feel. And so I thought, what better time to launch this podcast? But after this episode is up, I'm going to take a break over the Christmas holiday and have some good time to reflect and plan and celebrate and all of those good things. And then the podcast will be back in January. And what I'm wanting to do is I'm going to release a podcast once a month. So at the beginning of each month, you'll find a new podcast from me. You can find it right here on my channel. I'm sure that I'll also be posting it on Instagram and all the things. And what I really want to do first and foremost is create a space where we can check in together. If you're in real life friends with me, or if you've been following me for some time on Instagram, you know that I'm a big fan of checking in with myself. I also say that I'm a recovering perfectionist and I'm a recovering people pleaser. So those two things in combination often led me into seasons of burnout, into times where I could feel completely disconnected from myself, from who I am, from how I was feeling, and that always landed me in trouble. And as I've begun over the last few years to share that information with others in terms of coaching and mentoring and even speaking at events, I just find that so many people are are in the same boat, where the rat race of life is happening to them rather than them feeling like they have a real sense of agency or a real sense of connection to who they are, to what they're purposed to do, and to rhythms of life that will actually enable them to thrive and have the best impact that they can. So once a month we're going to check in together, and I'm going to talk you through various ways of doing that and share with you some of the things that I've learned and continue to learn on my life's journey so that we can grow together. I also want to be able to share with you once a month, maybe something that I'm reading, something that I'm listening to, or a product that I love. If you talk to my friends, I'm that friend. I'm the friend that it's like, I love to research. I love to find the best. I think it's actually because I like to get what I want. So I'm not afraid of geeking out on research. I'm not afraid of finding things. I'm a big fan of quality over quantity. And so I thought that would be a fun way to just share a little bit more of who I am, what I'm like, and hopefully some things that you will enjoy as well, so that we're kind of journeying through the year together. I'm sure that along the way I will also share snippets of things that I've been reading or studying, or things that I'm feeling, and just trust that that will bless you, that it will motivate you to do your own searching and seeking and study and all of that. So welcome. This is my space. And I'm really glad that you're here. So for this kind of opening episode, I thought I'd give you a taster of an end of year check-in. I think I get ultra reflective in December, because obviously my birthday is in this month as well. But there's many thoughts that often come with the end of a year. And if I'm honest with you, I often have to fight end of year blues. That's the recovering perfectionist in me. Sometimes I can have that internal voice that can be quite hard on myself, and I can look at, what have I achieved? What have I not achieved? What did I do? What did I not do? What are things that I was trusting for that have happened or that haven't happened? And sometimes, although I'm quite a glass half full person, sometimes when I'm talking to myself, I can have a very harsh or critical voice that can often be like, oh, you didn't do enough, or you said you do this, and it didn't happen, or whatever. And so really having intentional times to check in helps me deal with that sometimes, and it helps me also to go into the next year with intentionality. And that's a word you'll probably hear me talk about a lot. And I also want to say with that just because we want to be intentional, or I want to be intentional, there doesn't have to be intensity to intentionality. There is a difference between being intense and being intentional. I want to be intentional in a relaxed way that allows me to tap into rhythms of grace, rhythms of peace, rhythms that cause me and my family to thrive. And I'm really trusting the same for you. So I've written down a few things. I'm a note taker. Where are all my note takers? I love to take notes, and so I've written down a few things for us to think about as we go into the end of the year. So the first thing I've written here is to reflect on your personal growth so far. So it's kind of become a popular phrase, but it's one that you will definitely hear me use around here. I'm looking, and we are looking, for progress over perfection. Remember how I said I'm like a recovering perfectionist? Perfection doesn't exist, but I am a huge believer in excellence. And excellence, all that means is doing the best with what you have, not comparing to anyone else, not holding yourself to anyone else's standard, but doing the best with what you have, with the resources you have, the time that you have, the circumstances that you've been given, the capacity that you might have in any given season of life, really doing the best with what you have and striving for progress, not perfection. So as you think about coming to the end of the year, look at your personal growth and maybe write down, what are the areas that you have made significant progress in? So I have some wonderful mentors in my life, and often they would teach me to break down my life into categories, not so that I compartmentalize my life in a negative way, But it's really wonderful if you can look at the breadth of your life and the different facets of who you are and the things that make up your life. You can then go, oh, okay, I've made incredible progress in the area of my relationships, say, and I've made incredible progress in my finances, but maybe in my spiritual life, I haven't quite spent the time there, or the study that perhaps I wanted to do, or maybe in my physical life I haven't quite made the gains I wanted to in terms of my exercise and my health and all of those things. But what's wonderful is when you categorize your life in those ways, it helps to deal with that voice that can make you feel like you've failed all over the board, when actually no, it's like actually in so many areas I'm doing really, really well. I've made progress, and I want to celebrate the wins there. I want to intentionally celebrate the wins there, and then take stock of, okay, there's some areas that I actually feel I do want to work on, but just because I need to work on some areas doesn't mean I'm an all over failure. I hope that makes sense to you. So what areas have you made significant progress in? And then I love asking myself this. I actually ask myself this question every month or every couple of months. What are the most significant lessons that you've learned? I am a huge believer, and one of my lifelong goals is that I want to be a lifelong learner. We actually have a family declaration of who we are and who we aspire to be as a family up on our wall in our living room. And one of the things that we say on there is that we are learners. And I often teach my children, one of the greatest things you can be is a lifelong learner. And that the second you feel there's nothing left to learn, then actually what's the point in living after that? Because that just feels like a stagnant and boring existence. So what are the lessons that you've learned? I know for me that 2023, there have been some incredible highs in this year, really wonderful moments that I will treasure forever. But there have also been some incredibly, incredibly, incredibly dark and deep lows that have been really challenging to me. And I can't say, when I look back on some of those things, some of those times are not things that I would want to revisit, because they were really difficult. But the thing that helps me, and the thing that perhaps gets me through when I think about the tougher times in a year, is that if I've learned something in that time, then I'm a winner. That whether I would want that circumstance to happen again, whether I would want those situations to happen again, whether I would want to feel even perhaps the pain or the stress at times that those circumstances caused me, if I know I've learned something, then I feel like I've come out the other end victorious, and I'm always a winner if I can view my life through that lens. And so I'm asking you, what are the significant lessons that you've learned? And take time to reflect on that, even if they're hard lessons. Some of the most precious lessons that I have learned in my life have actually come out of some of the hardest circumstances. That's a whole other conversation. I'm not a person that says everything happens for a reason. I don't know if I really get down with that statement. But what I do feel, because if you've known me for 2 seconds, you know that I'm a Christian. You know that I have a love for Jesus, that I want to be a follower and a friend of Jesus. One of the things that I have learned is that God, in his kindness, allows reason, allows learning, allows victory, and even allows tools to emerge that you can give to other people out of situations that are difficult. And so, what are the lessons that you have learned? And how have you grown as an individual? I would really encourage you to write those things down, because I believe that they are like treasures. They will become like treasures to you, and they are things that you can take and pack in your bag for next year, and really know that, wow, okay, that was difficult, but even in the difficulty, something wonderful has come out of that. Something valuable has come out of it. And it's okay if there are situations in your life that you can look at and go, I don't even see the point of why that happened. I'm not trying to tie a red bow on situations that are really hard for no reason, but I'm just encouraging you to take a moment and say, actually, was there anything? So that if there was, you don't miss the opportunity to gather up that treasure of learning and take it forward. So the other thing that is so important is to celebrate the wins. As you look at your personal growth, as you look at significant lessons that you've learned, as you look back over your year, there are things to celebrate. And even if they feel small, you know what? Small is significant. What are the things that you want to celebrate, and how are you going to mark them? Maybe you're going to write them down in your journal. Maybe you're going to get some time with a friend after you've listened to this podcast and say, actually, I was listening to this and I realized there are things that I have learned and things that have been wonderful. And I just wanted to share that with someone so that I don't just let it bypass me. You know, so often I think I can pray for things, or I can trust for things, or I can hope for things. And I always want to make sure that I'm someone that takes the time to then also express the gratitude when they happen, to also celebrate the wins. And if you're a recovering perfectionist like me, celebrating wins and really taking time to mark them is important, because it helps deal with that voice in your head that says, oh, but you didn't do this and you didn't do this and that wasn't right. So what are the wins that you can celebrate? The other thing, because I believe the wealth, the true wealth in life lies in our relationships, is to look at your relationships and reflect on them. Cultivate some gratitude for the relationships in your life, and reflect on the people and the experiences that you're grateful for, and find ways to express that appreciation. Maybe you want to write someone a card, or just give them a phone call, or send them a message, or whatever it is, and just find a way of marking the impact of that relationship in your life and what that has meant to you. Where are the areas that you would like to improve? I know that we've talked about personal growth previously, but now this is a little bit of a forward thinking moment. Maybe just take some time to think, oh yeah, this is something I would love to work on, or this is an adventure I would love to go on. This is a dream I'm still carrying in my heart. This is someone that's come to mind while I was cultivating gratitude for my relationships. I think, you know what, this person has really been on my mind. Write those things down, because they can begin to start to form your vision and your planning and your intentionality for the coming year. Something else I really like to do, and I've got some notes written here, which is why I keep looking there, is to look at the area of community. How are you engaging in community? And maybe take some time to consider ways that you can positively spread kindness, that you can spread serving, or that you can meet some kind of need over this time. You know, the Christmas holidays and the end of year holidays are such a wonderful time. You know, I love that over the years, myself and my family, that we've built up various traditions, and I love going into this season knowing it's time to do those things again. But I'm not someone, I find that I can often have an area of discomfort if I feel like that is just for me and mine. Excuse me. I always want to make sure that we are leaving space, that we are planning intentionally. How can we include others into those things? You know, I feel very fortunate that coming into this December holiday season, that I feel incredibly rich in the area of relationship. I feel incredibly blessed that I can sit around a table and have Christmas dinner with my family. And there's so much to celebrate in that. But I can also look back on my life and I can remember birthdays and I can remember Christmases that felt incredibly lonely, that felt incredibly shrouded in sadness, in insecurity and in loneliness. And I remember at the time feeling like it was amazing to me how people that I never assumed would be there for me were there for me in those times, and other times that were so painful because I felt like the people who I thought I could count on who would be there were not there. And there was incredible times of isolation and sadness. And I know that for many people coming to the end of the year, that can be the mood surrounding them. And so if you're someone where you feel like you've got capacity or resource to think about, how can I turn my focus outwards and look after someone, maybe send someone a Christmas card, or maybe buy them a small gift, or invite them into your home, and think of how are ways that I can look around me and serve my community, to serve those around me in beautiful ways. Because I really feel like if we all can share sometimes the little that we have, that there is so much to go around. And it's not about how much you have, but actually so many people just want a place to feel like they belong. And so as I'm looking at the next month, I'm looking at how can we make sure that we create spaces of belonging. That's really one of our values as a family, to create spaces of belonging in our lives and in our home for people, so that people know that they are special, that they are significant, that they are loved, that they are seen. And maybe you are someone that feels like, I would really love to feel like that. And I'm really trusting for you, friend, that if it's a difficult one, that you will really know that even if you feel like people around you don't see you, that you will know that your Father in heaven sees you, that he loves you, that the entire reason that we celebrate Christmas is because God so loved this world, he so loved you, that he decided he was not going to be a far off, distant, up in the sky God, that he became human to dwell with us, to dwell among us, to live life for us, and so that he could ultimately sacrifice himself so that we could have access to relationship with our Father, to have eternal security and salvation, but not just a salvation that begins on the other side of this world when we depart this world, but also so that we could have life, and life in the fullness here on earth, so that we could experience peace and joy and kindness and a sense of belonging that doesn't come from anything externally, but comes from knowing that we have been found, that we were created, that we were chosen, that we were purposed, and that even if our circumstances or your circumstances right now might not remind you of that, that there'll be a witness on the inside of you that says, I know that I'm loved, I know that I was created for a purpose, I know that I'm cherished, and I know that I have eternal hope and eternal salvation. So even if you don't find yourself at someone's table, that you will know that you are chosen by God, that you are made by him, and that there is wonderful goodness on its way to you. Yeah, I really hope that that settles for someone. And as I was preparing to do this first episode today, I just was reminded, and perhaps it's because I have to battle this because it's birthday week and the end of the year is coming up, that sometimes I know at times I can definitely feel like, but have I really contributed anything significant? Have I really done anything that matters? Or have I really achieved anything? I can so often have to fight that inner voice. And a lot of this year, I have found myself reading in John 4 from verse 1 to 26, which is where Jesus talks with the Samaritan woman at the well. And I'm just going to read a tiny bit of it, and then I wanted to talk to you about some things that have stuck out to me from it. So it says here from verse 1, the Pharisees heard that Jesus was gaining and baptizing more disciples than John, although in fact it was not Jesus who baptized, but his disciples. When the Lord learned of this, he left Judea and he went back once more to Galilee. Now he had to go through Samaria, so he came to a town in Samaria called Sychar, near the plot of ground Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired as he was from the journey, sat down by the well. It was about the 6th hour. When a Samaritan woman came to draw water, Jesus said to her, "Will you give me a drink?" His disciples had gone into the town to buy food. The Samaritan woman said to him, "You are a Jew, and I am a Samaritan woman. How can you ask me for a drink?" For Jews do not associate with Samaritans. Jesus answered her, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is that asks you for a drink, you would have asked him and he would have given you living water." And many of us will know that they go on to have this beautiful exchange where Jesus confirms that he knows this woman, that he knows about her life, that he is who he says he is, that he is the Messiah, that he is the Christ, and he's the one that she's been looking for. And what he talks about is ultimately he inaugurates the coming kingdom, the kingdom that has now come, that the Jewish people have been waiting for, and that she can now be part of. He invites her into that kingdom. And it's such a significant moment in scripture and in the history, in God's story of what he's doing. And as I was reading this, probably towards the first quarter of this year, just that little phrase stuck out to me. In verse 4 through to verse 6, it says, "Now he had to go through Samaria, so he came to a town in Samaria called Sychar, near the plot of ground that Jacob had given his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired as he was from the journey, sat down by the well, and it was the 6th hour." And I was just struck by, wow, Jacob's well. And I started to think about, well, why would they meet at Jacob's well? Because I feel like there's nothing that is unintentional in the word of God. And so I began doing a little bit of research, and there is so much deep significance as to why they met at that well, why they met at that time. But 2,000 years later, Jesus, the Christ, the Son of God, was going to stand at that well and inaugurate the kingdom of God there. And it just, as I was thinking about that, it just gave me an incredible sense of pressure coming off of me and peace, but also a deep sense of significance. And what I mean by that is, there was this well that was built 1800, 2000 years before, and it's just it was built because people need water, right? And there was obviously wonderful significance of why Jacob went to that well and who he met there and all of those kind of things. But I just kind of got fascinated with the fact that while that was Jacob's well and that well was there, God already had in mind 2,000 years later something so incredibly significant, that while Jacob was being obedient in building that well and in meeting at that well, that God already had something even more significant in mind. And I was thinking about, as we approach the end of the year, but perhaps when I've been asking you those questions to reflect on, that you can think about your year and think, well, was it even significant? Did I even do something significant? I just did the daily things, or the things that needed to get done, or the things that the season demanded of me. But I really want to encourage you that what we do now, you don't know ultimately who is going to stand at Kara's well, who is going to stand at the well of your life in a generation to come, who's going to stand at the well of your obedience in a generation to come. And I really felt like the reason it took a pressure off me was, it was like, I don't have to create the significance. I don't have to constantly worry, am I doing enough? Am I performing well enough? Have I achieved enough? Am I where I should be, or where society says I should be, or where certain voices in my head say I should be, or even where certain people in my life think I maybe should be? But I am doing the best I can with what I have, and I want to do that faithfully, and I want to live a life of obedience and intentionality. And in that, there's a peace knowing I'm just responsible for the obedience. God knows the outcome. God already has in mind what he wants to do with the seeds that I'm planting with my life, with the seeds of my obedience, with the seeds of my action. But what it also did was gave me a very weighty sense of significance of what I do each day is significant. I might not know what the significance is, but it is significant. And so let me really try and live my life well. Let me live it authentically, simply. You know that those are two things that are so important to me if you've been following me on social. Simple, authentic grace. That is really what I'm about and what I really want my life to be about. And so I hope that encourages you and blesses you, that as you go about the simplicity of daily life, the simplicity of daily obedience and walking with Jesus, that you will trust that as you sow seeds of obedience, as you sow seeds of intentionality, as you sow seeds of integrity, as you sow even seeds of sacrifice, that you will really take pleasure and delight and peace knowing that in a generation, who knows who is going to show up at the well of those things, and what wonderful things, what moments of wonder might occur because of what you do. We just never know. So I really want to thank you for joining me for my first episode of the Honey Words podcast. It's been so wonderful to have you here. I'm super excited for what this is going to turn into, what it's going to look like, and the journey that we're going to go on together. Please feel free to stick in the comments, what you've learned, some of your significant learning, something that you took away from today, maybe topics that you'd like me to talk about in the future, maybe an area that you're struggling with that you think I'd love you to talk about this, maybe boundaries or relationships or hard conversations or planning or family, whatever it is. Maybe there's something that you've been looking for and you need that geeky friend to research it for you. But whatever it is, I'm so glad that you're here. You are so welcome here. And yeah, episode 1 is up and out, and I feel good to have got it out of my system. And yeah, here's to a year of journeying together, friends. Thank you for being here.